Hey, Mitch, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How are you?
I am living the dream. I'm excited to have you on the podcast today. I want to talk about all kinds of stuff, what's going on with Google and, of course, AI. Maybe talk a little bit about what's happening with TikTok. Will that be around and what are the ramifications either way? Um, Other things about how the consumer is reacting today to things
Yeah,
from, interest rates to inflation and so forth, how it may have affected your business and the industry you're in. So you ready to go?
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. The last time we spoke offline, we were talking about Google and AI and how AI may really affect how people search for things and how Google is trying to respond to that. Will Google be as relevant as it has been in home service for really the past couple decades? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it definitely feels like it's changing for sure. We've noticed a change in lead quality from Google,
Quality.
um, to where like like when Angie's leads first came out, the leads were good. And then as any big corporation does, it needs to continue delivering better and better results to the shareholders. And there's only so many good qualified leads out there. And so Angie's leads started lowering the threshold of what they would consider a qualified lead. And if you have a threshold here and you've got 100,000 leads, well, if you lower that threshold, you now have 120,000 leads, but 20,000 of them are lower quality, right? But but your shareholders see a 20% increase in leads. And so but then they never communicate that to the end consumer that's buying the leads. And so, you're kind of in a dark area there, right? Well, we've noticed Google doing the same thing.
Mhm.
Really just in the last 12 months. Google LSA used to be a phenomenal lead source for us, and the leads they would book at the same rates or higher as organic leads. The customers were spending more money than organic leads. Um, and like LSA was the play. Well, now we get a lot of price shoppers on LSA. And what I think has happened, I don't know this to be true, and Google would never admit to this if it is actually happening. But what I think has happened is, it used to be a year or two ago, somebody would Google plumber near me, and that would trigger Google to throw up the Google local services ads, right? This person's looking for a plumber. Well, I think Google has lowered their threshold of what they consider a qualified lead. And so now they're throwing up the LSA ads when somebody says, like, how do I repair my water heater? Right.
They're
And
reaching.
plumber near me says, I want to spend my money with another plumber. How do I repair my water heater? Says, I want to do it myself. But Google is opening, like putting your LSA ad in front of more and more people, even though they're less qualified. Well, those people don't know that every time they click on that ad and call us, like it's different all around the nation. Right now, for me, it's $81 every time somebody calls me from an LSA ad,
Mhm.
right? And so the other thing that makes me think this is Google removed our ability to dispute a lead. They now handle disputes in house. We'll dispute it for you. We're looking out for you, right? And obviously they're not looking out for you, they're looking out for their shareholders and their bottom line. And so, um your ability to refute non-qualified leads, like price shoppers over the phone and stuff like that, has gone away.
Mhm.
And so, our lead volume has increased, but the lead quality has decreased. So the number of qualified leads is relatively unchanged, but the price has gone. When we started doing LSA 24 months ago,
Mhm.
we were spending $51 a lead. And this latest update that I got from Google, we're spending $85 a lead. And so the price has gone up, the lead volume has gone up, but the lead quality has gone
Yeah.
down.
So
And
the value's gone down huge.
yeah, yeah, essentially our cost per booked lead has gone through the roof.
You know what's interesting? Companies that have been around for decades aren't around for decades after that. All good things come to an end. When I was young, there was a big, big retailer called Sears.
Yeah.
Sears. It made Amazon for the time look kind of okay, meaning it was
Yeah.
huge. I mean, you could buy a house and they would deliver it in pieces and you could have it built on your property. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a catalog system. It was the Amazon of its time and it was huge, and it's really no longer.
Right.
And all good things will come to an end. And I think the younger the company, the less they have to lose. And the big ones are always worried about Wall Street. If they're a
Yeah.
public company, what are we going to do? And they're always now at that point, right, trying to appease the stakeholders, and they're not working for you, the paying customer. They're working for the shareholder. That's their
Yeah.
job. It's just the way it is, whether we like it or not. When you go to McDonald's, you're not the customer, the shareholder is. Sorry,
Right.
it's the way it is. And these companies ultimately fail. Are you concerned for Google? If you owned a lot of shares in Google, would you be worried your investment's going to go south over the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that kind of a financial position in Google. My
Mhm.
financial position is on the paying end of things, right?
Yeah.
Instead of on the dividend side of things.
Yeah.
But I do know that as a home service contractor, we are looking for ways to insulate ourselves away from Google to
Mhm.
where our brand can carry on. If Google were to disappear, our brand can carry on. We don't want all of our eggs in Google baskets. We want it diversified as many places as we can, um but that's the challenge of business too, is finding the Angie's leads before the downhill side of the curve, right? Finding the Googles before the downhill side of the curve, and
Yes.
everything else. And I'm not going to say Google's on the downhill side yet, but what I'm saying is the game has definitely changed over the last 12 months. And we used to get excited about a Google lead, and now it's like, let me guess, they didn't book, and I just got charged $81.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's talk about branding. A lot of companies in plumbing, electrical, HVAC, they want to pay for leads.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can afford it, they'll do branding. But branding is really, well, that's okay, but we just want the phone to ring. Do you believe that today and going forward, if you're not branding, if you're not putting stuff out on YouTube, if you're not on social media, if you're not getting your name and picture and brand out there, then even though you buy leads, you're going to eventually just go away. That's
Yeah.
what I see.
Yeah. So I've got, companies either buy customers or earn customers.
There you go.
If you're buying customers, that means you're buying leads and you're spending money on advertising and everything else. If you're earning customers, that's through word of mouth referrals and delivering exceptional service and taking care of your customers, but also building a good, solid brand, right?
Mm.
Earning customers is the long-term play, buying customers is the short-term play. And so we've built our business on earning as many customers as we have. And our brand is, it's not weak, but it's not as strong as it could be. And so ironically, that's on my to-do list for early next year, Q1 or Q2 of next year, is to rebrand our company so that we can, the end goal is that we end up with more direct searches and we end up with fewer ambiguous searches, right? I want people searching for Smedley Plumbing on Google instead of plumber near me. Um, and if they search for plumber near me, it opens the door for them to call somebody else.
Absolutely. There's no question when you're specifically looking for something, a brand, or even a product. If you go to Amazon and you're specifically looking for something you've seen advertised somewhere else, which I do all the time, right? I'll see an ad somewhere and I'm like, well, I don't want to buy from them because Amazon's my first choice. I'll go to Amazon and I type in the name of the product or the brand name, and sure enough, there it is. And that's the one I want. Boom, done. When you're looking for something broad, like replace my water heater, fine, you'll come up and so will your competitors.
Right.
But if they believe in Smedley, then boom.
Yeah.
It's simple because you will come up. Google makes it easy. You'll come up organically because it should be in your URL. Very
Right.
simple. And, I tell people all the time, if you want to find yourself, just type your name in and you'll probably be at the top, especially if you own your own domain.
Yeah.
Like I have jimklauck.com.
Yep.
No brainer. Luckily, I have kind of a unique name, which is helpful too. You type my name,
Yeah.
there aren't many people, but I totally agree with you. I know Dan Antonelli, he preaches this all the time. I think he bangs his head against the wall a lot because there are so many people in home service who are like, I just want to spend money on the lead. It's the sprint, not the marathon, like you had mentioned, right? It's a short-term game. You have to do both. Really, you just can't build a brand and it will just come. You have to put money out there and so forth and get some leads here and there, but build that brand. So ultimately, after some time, and you've got equity in this thing, people see your vans and your trucks and your billboards and the stuff you're doing on social, maybe TV, maybe radio, podcasts, and that's the way to do it. But I think people want to kind of take the shortcut. They
Right.
they don't want to. You know what they want to do? They want to take the weight loss drug. They don't want to go on a diet. They don't
Right.
want to exercise. They just want to go. That's what they want to do. It's exactly
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, you can look at some other brands, like take Tesla, for example.
Yeah.
When's the last time you saw a Tesla commercial on TV?
They don't need to.
They're right. Their brand is strong enough that their consumers go direct to them without having to advertise, right? But then you take a lot of the antiquated automotive manufacturers, Ford, Dodge, Chevy, all those guys, and they're pumping millions of dollars a month out in advertising, because they have to buy their customers, right? And it's kind of funny that all of that's happened because, like, I've been in search of a new car here lately, and so I've had some experience at like the traditional dealership, and they were horrible experiences. And I made sure to give these sales managers the feedback on it. And part of that feedback was like, you guys are already under the gun from like Tesla and Amazon making it so much easier to buy a car than this whole process. Literally, the last thing you have to hang your hat on is service. And if you can't provide phenomenal service through the traditional dealership model, you're host. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're out of business.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's everything has changed. Everything has changed.
Yeah.
Look what Amazon has done to the traditional retailer. And it
Right.
doesn't matter what space you were in.
Right.
Toys R Us is gone. Pet stores.
I have no doubt that you're going to be able to buy trades-based products on Amazon and pay for installation on Amazon, and then they just show up to your house and install it.
Sure.
They're going to turn even traditional, what you would call services, they're going to turn services into commodities. You can already buy a car on Amazon right now.
Yeah.
I think it's Mitsubishi. I'm not sure the manufacturer. One of the manufacturers opened up to where in certain areas you can actually just log into Amazon and buy a car, and it gets delivered to your house, right? All the financing happens in a few seconds, everything. And if they can do that with cars, because remember, cars used to be like, oh, we're providing a service through the dealership.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tesla showed that you don't have to provide the service.
Mm.
So now Amazon's like, okay, if we can commoditize cars, then we can pretty much commoditize anything. And where I see home services going is like, oh, I need a new roof. Oh, look, I can buy this one on Amazon. It's got great reviews. Done. And I mean, there are, like, take a roof, for example. Between Google Street View and Google Overhead View, you can get a bid for your roof.
Absolutely.
They can measure your roof. They can check the pitch of your roof and everything, right? And so, you know, I see a lot of traditionally service-based businesses becoming commoditized real soon.
So, do you see a lot of these smaller mom and pop operators that have been around for decades, um, going by the wayside? Because we got PE money, we got all kinds of things going on, right? So it's
Yeah.
not just technology, but it's also the groups coming in and changing the landscape. If if you had a crystal ball and you believed it, what do you think that crystal ball would say in a decade? What does the home services industry look like in general?
What I think is you're going to have big PE companies and big PE franchises
Mhm.
working with Amazon. In other words, the big gets bigger and the small gets smaller, and the middle guys just seem to disappear. The gap gets wider between the small guys and the big guys.
Oh, like the middle class of America.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I see, like if Amazon rolls out home services, right? They can't roll that out to the mom and pops. They're going to have a hard time with that, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to roll it out to your ARSs and your other big
Mhm.
private equity conglomerates, and they're gonna, you're already seeing that happen on the surface level anyway, with like Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards with their water heater installation and their
Yep.
other services. They try to work through the bigs. They'll work through the littles too. Like we have a client in Tradewinds that does all of the Lowe's water heater installations. Um, but you're going to start to see where, okay, you don't even have to go in the store of Home Depot and buy it and everything else. Like you can literally just log in online and buy it. And, Amazon's significantly bigger than Home Depot. And so, whereas Home Depot might struggle for their installation services, Amazon will figure it out.
I agree. And you're right. Right now, I can either go into Home Depot or online, order water heaters, and they have their subcontractors do the work.
Yeah.
And I mean, Amazon, they can do anything they want. I mean, literally. They've never, well, they have brought some things forth that we may or may not have heard of, and they got rid of them. But for the most part, they pretty much get anything done. And some of the things that they offer kind of blow my mind. I'm like, I can't believe they offer that service or that product through Amazon. I
Right.
mean, years ago it was just books, and now look what they've done. It's like anything, and it's amazing. It still blows my mind. When I need something, I generally go to Amazon first. It's much easier to have it delivered to me than for me to drive somewhere to find out that some
Yep.
big box store doesn't have it. And I'm amazed. They're like, not only do they have it, but they have a variety of options that the store would never stock in their brick and mortar.
Right.
They
Right.
wouldn't, not
Yeah.
these obscure SKUs.
We had one of our fleet vehicles involved in a collision, and it took the dealership like a month to get it fixed. And in week 4 of it being at the dealership, I'm at the dealership giving them a hard time, like, why is this taking so long? And they were saying that they were having a hard time locating the radiator for this Ford Transit. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. A Ford Transit's one of the most common vehicles out there. There's not a shortage of radiators. They were just a shipping mix up, right? And I ended up having to leverage Amazon against them. And I said, look, your job is to source parts and put them on the vehicle. Like if we were to break down and I'm not trying to dumb down your job, but if we were to break it down to its most basic form, it's to source parts and put them on the vehicle.
Yeah.
I said, in the Amazon day and age, I can pretty much buy anything I want and it'll be here in 2 to 3 days. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home and I'm going to buy my own radiator for my own Transit because I need this vehicle back on the road. I'm losing profit every day it's in the shop, right? So I said, I'm going to go buy my own radiator and it'll get delivered on my doorstep tomorrow. And I'm going to bring it into here and I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to your boss and you're going to look really bad because you had 3 weeks to get a radiator here and you couldn't. And I got it here in 36 hours. And lo and behold, that level of challenge to the dealership, all of a sudden they had the radiator the next day, right? I didn't end up having to follow through with it, but like we're at the point right now where we can actually use the speed and efficiency of Amazon to our advantage to the local brick and mortar agencies, and you can kind of leverage that against them. But I mean, you know, it's a lot of people think you're crazy, but like even automotive repair shops, it's not going to be long before you're taking photos of a collision, and AI is trained to know based off of the damage of that photo, it's going to need all of these parts. And then digitally, without ever setting foot anywhere, a tow truck comes and picks up your car and takes it to the place. They fix it and brings it back and drops it off at your house. And it was all through the internet and photos and artificial intelligence.
I agree. And then one step further than that, it's only a matter of time where you're not going to have to worry about your car. There will be a vehicle that arrives at your place, wherever that is, to take you somewhere. I believe in the future, there'll be less and less owning of vehicles and more of a vehicle pickup and delivery service.
Yeah. Well, they're already beta testing that in, a lot of big cities. I took a vacation about a year ago. I was in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically Ubers, taxis.
Yeah.
But they were autonomous, self-driving. And so you would order it on your phone, and here's this car with nobody in it that just pulls up on its own to pick you up and take you somewhere.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. So I think that you like to have your own vehicle. I've enjoyed having my own vehicle. I told you about my, Dodge SRT Challenger. Love that car. I've owned BMW, Lexus, Cadillac, and I enjoy driving. But I believe that the younger generations don't appreciate it as much as older generations. And eventually it's just going to be a vehicle, literally the word vehicle, to get you from point A to point B. It'll be like a bread box vehicle. It'll be like rectangular or square, will not be a steering wheel. You'll get in it. Ordinarily, it might not be safe in a collision, but don't worry, there'll be less collisions because it's not going to collide because of technology.
Right. It's communicating with the other vehicles on the road. And so faster than you can react, as vehicles start communicating to each other, it's communicating to the vehicle 5 vehicles in front of you on the highway. And when they tap their brakes, even though you're 5 vehicles back,
it knows.
They're on their brakes, or they're on their brakes really hard. And like all of those are advancements in technology that are absolutely coming. It's just a matter of time, and you can either embrace them and learn your way around them, or you can fear them and get replaced by them.
Yeah. And it's an interesting time. I'd like to talk about something that is near and dear to both of us, and that's digital media, social media, online video, podcasting. You and I both do a fair amount of that. Do you believe it's even now more important than it was a few years ago? Because when social media came in, it was like, oh boy, I get to share a picture of my kids at the circus with their grandparents and stuff. And then businesses started using it. And now it seems like if you're not using it somehow, which by the way, a lot of people don't know how to use it.
Yep.
But if you're not using it, you're behind, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, we grew our business to over $1 million a year in revenue without spending a dime on marketing. It was all social media and word of mouth and everything else. And we coach people in Tradewinds to do the same thing. But there is so much opportunity out there on social media alone without having to buy leads to brand yourself and your company as the place to go, right? We've all seen the videos of the, I'm going to say like Aborigine type fella that they're out in the jungle somewhere, and he's in like, a loincloth of some kind, and he's using sticks, and he makes cool mud huts and water features and all kinds of things in the jungle. Like, Like we're just transfixed on interesting videos.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can take slices of that, and everybody is momentarily transfixed on a home service at some time in their life, right? If you need a new roof, your social media knows you need a new roof because it's watching you and listening to you. It hears you talk to the spouse. It watches you Google search roofers near me, all of those things. And so companies that are putting out content on social media, especially video content on social media at a regular basis, well, guess whose customer is going to start seeing that content, right? And so the more content you put out about your customer, the more opportunity about your customer's questions and concerns as they're getting ready to purchase.
Yeah.
The more likely you are to land with your brand in front of that customer during their very narrow window to buy, right? Take water heaters, for example. How many water heaters have you ever had to replace in your life in your own house?
Asking me personally, I
Yeah.
have, I don't think I've ever in a home I've lived in. That means I've moved relatively frequently.
Okay. So, and that's a very accurate answer, right? Me personally, I'm 42 years old and I've had to replace 2 water heaters in my homes throughout the course of my living there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a homeowner for 23 years. I bought my first house at 19. So in 23 years, I've had to replace 2 water heaters. So imagine knowing that your consumer needs your product only twice in 23 years.
Yeah.
How in the world do you get in front of that consumer during that ultra narrow window, right? Well, putting content on YouTube, specifically YouTube, helps dramatically. Anybody that's listening to this show, if you go to Google right now, I don't care where you're at. If you go to Google right now and you type in what water heater should I buy, and you click on the video results, you're going to see me at the top of those results. And this was a strategic play we did in our company to try to get in front of consumers as they're in that very narrow window to buy, right? You could do the same thing. You could Google like, what toilet should I buy? And you're going to see me at the top of those video results. The toilet one, it's like a blue background and me hovering over a toilet with a whole bunch of junk in it. But these were all plays that we did to get in front of our customer in that incredibly narrow window, right? In the challenge that we have, like, let's say roofers don't have this challenge because a year ago, a hailstorm came through my neighborhood. Roofers can just simply follow the weather. And now roofers know that every house in my neighborhood needs a new roof. Every house in my neighborhood is in need of their services right now, right? Makes it pretty easy to market if you're a roofer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, somebody in my neighborhood needs a plumber today. Who? I don't know.
Oh no.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I owe it to myself to create content in a big, lengthy digital footprint out there to where I stand a chance for my brand to show up in front of a consumer during that several hours or at most several days where they're looking for a water heater or something like that, right? It's not like a car where you do your research and you're testing and comparing models and you're watching videos and you're test driving cars, and it's a several day or several week or maybe even several month process, right?
Yep.
You're not going to go test drive a water heater. And you're not going to go, like, nobody's out there searching up water heaters like, oh, I'd love to have a new water heater one day. Like, no, it's you forget about your water heater until you don't have hot water. And then it's, I need a new water heater today. Right. And so home service companies putting content out there are greatly increasing the chances that they're going to be in front of their consumer during that incredibly finite window that they have.
Do you think most home service companies understand this?
No, not yet.
How will they? Who's there to tell them besides you and I talking on this? And this won't be seen by every home service company, unfortunately.
Right.
And even if it were, a lot of people are like, I don't have time to figure this out. I've got to spend more money on Google to get my lead today.
Yeah. Well, so what I see in the home service sector, especially like through Tradewinds, we're working with the lower end, $1 million and less companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a significant amount of companies out there that are a lifestyle business. They're not a legacy business. In other words, when they were working, I'll take a plumber for example. When I was, I'm going to put myself as a business, like a stereotypical small plumbing company business owner. Okay. And so that guy is going to say something along the lines of like, when I was working for somebody else, I was making 80 grand a year. I started my own company and now I'm making 100 grand a year, 25% pay increase, right? And that's all it took to make them happy. They get the freedom that they want
Mm-hmm.
and they got a 25% pay increase and that's it, right? Well, that guy isn't going to take much advice from anybody because he didn't want anything more than his 25% pay increase, right? And so there's always going to be home service companies that are still making paychecks and still by definition succeeding because they aren't failing. But they aren't really growing more than what the average market is going to let them grow or anything else. And they're kind of stuck in the old ways, right? And in the newer companies that want to grow and want to develop and want to expand and have multiple locations or, create a significant impact in their marketplace or whatever, they're going to be the ones that are receptive to new ideas, new marketing ideas, new branding ideas, and they're going to get out of the box and try new things. So one of the things I always coach people, especially in the home services industry, is, your life is more interesting than you give it credit for. Especially during that finite window where somebody is in need of your services. And so like you're already doing the thing every day. Just pull out your camera and record it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're already putting in the water heater. You're already augering the drain line. You're already replacing the expansion tank or whatever. Record it and then edit it up real quick. And now you have a piece of content that will help grow your business, will help bring more customers to you that you don't have to pay for. And so now you can get more customers for the same ad spend and grow your business.
I think it's a foreign language to them. It's hard to teach an old dog, no pun intended, old dog, new tricks, right?
Right.
And you're talking about a lifestyle business. They bought themselves a job. They're self-employed. Literally, that's a true definition of self-employed.
Yep.
Which isn't necessarily a bad life. That's why they call it a lifestyle business. It's they're in control, but aren't they taking a huge risk that one day when all of this just comes crashing down quickly, that they are out of business to the point where no one's going to buy their little lifestyle business? They literally going to get squeezed out.
Yeah. And for me, it's not even the risk of like one day when everything comes crashing down, because I don't think it's going to come crashing. I think it'll slowly erode away, right? But and typically what'll happen is that business owner will find it harder and harder and harder to do business, and then he'll eventually just close up everything, sell off what little assets he has, and then he'll go to work for somebody because that's easier. And eventually it's gonna, if he refuses to grow, all of a sudden it's going to be easier and pay more if he goes and works back for somebody else, right? But also what I see is the other side of it, where you have the bigger risk comes in from, like, if you own your job and you aren't trying to build a full-fledged business. The difference between owning a job and owning a business is if you own your job, it makes money when you're working it.
Yep.
And if you own a business, it makes money when you're not there, right? And so the big risk I see with owning your job, being a self-employed home service guy, is what if you break your leg
and
you're out 6 weeks? You have no income for 6 weeks, right? If you have any other kind of illness where you're out for a period of time, if you want to take a family vacation, your business, all things in the business halt, all revenue stops so that you can go take a vacation with your family. And so to me, that was the bigger risk. As we started our company, I was our only plumber when we started. It was me out in the field and my wife answering phones. For me, it was a race to get to I wanted a 3-truck platform as fast as possible, because at 3 trucks, I had the security to handle the normal ebbs and flows that come in business, but I also had the consistency to where other people can do the event while I take my eye off the prize for a minute and I go relax, self-care, family vacations. I can take a sick day, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So many home service businesses aren't what I consider a business. If you can't walk away from it, then it's not a business. If you can't transfer it easily to someone else where there's value, because if you are the guy and it's small, your company at best is worth the phone number. And that's not going to be a lot. And maybe some materials and some equipment and tools. You're not going to get, 6, 8, 9 times your business. It's not, you're not that type of business. And I just worry about them. I've seen in retail over decades how there are less and less stores. When I was a kid, there were a lot more mom and pop operators. Walmart basically went through and decimated small towns. And, the main street isn't the same anymore.
Right.
Amazon's doing that. PE companies are doing that to an extent. It's changing the landscape. And I find it interesting. I'm fortunate enough to be in a place where I like to help winning companies win more. That's what I tell people. Like, people ask me, Jim, what do you do? I help winning companies, home service companies, win more. So if you're already moving ahead, I've got some ideas on how you can continue to do that. But if someone says, hey, I'm a plumber, I've been a plumber for 30 years. It's me and the wife. She's at home. She dispatches and does the books. I do the work. I'm in the van. I can't help you.
Right. Outside of the fact that the budget probably isn't there for you to help them, they couldn't handle the workload that would come from adding content out there on social media, So that's why it's part of like a universal vision of the company. The vision of the company has to be building a team and growing and creating efficiency, policies and things like that to streamline things. And then part of that is getting more and more leads in the door. And you can either pay for them or earn them, and you earn them through branding and you pay for them through advertising.
Absolutely. Before we conclude, I want you to talk to me a little bit about Tradewinds and how you help the small home service professional in the beginning and, help them grow up, if you will, throughout the process.
Yeah, essentially Tradewinds is the bridge between the guy that is really good at his trade, but he doesn't quite understand the business half of it. And so if he's ambitious enough to start his own company and he's ambitious enough to look into a resource like Tradewinds, then chances are he's wanting to grow and he's wanting to develop and he's wanting to get his company out of a self-employed thing, owning a job, and get his company transitioned over to owning a business where he has a team of people that are doing the things. And so Tradewinds is an organization. It's a coaching company where we coach small trades-based companies on how to get started on processes and how to get started on hiring and who should your first hire be and how you should hire and how you should fire and how to attract great employees even though you're small and all of these things. And when we decided to start Tradewinds, it was actually spawned from our podcast called The Void, where we just talk about all these things, but we were getting so many questions about people that wanted more than what we could do on a podcast. So we created Tradewinds. And the niche is there's a lot of coaching and mentorship companies out there that will take your $3 to $5 million company to the next level. They'll take your $10 million company to the next level, your $15 million company to the next level, or whatever. There are very few, if any, coaches out there that will help you get started, will bring your business into existence, right? There's very few out there that will help you get to your first $1 million a year in revenue. And so where we saw that gap getting wider, the smaller guys staying smaller and the bigger guys getting bigger. It was like, well, hell, let's help people cross that gap. And hence the symbolism of our podcast, the void, right? It's crossing the void of no man's land from being employed to being self-employed. And then Tradewinds is to take you from being self-employed to being a business owner.
And that's a big step. It's really tough to go from one truck to two. Easier to go from 20 to 40. It really is, because you've already got a system and a process.
We vocalize that all the time. Going from one truck to two is the heaviest lift you'll ever make in the creation of your company, because it literally means doubling everything. It means doubling your team. It means doubling your processes, doubling your payroll, doubling your expenses, your inventory, your truck, your leads, your call volume. Everything doubles. But when you go from 2 trucks to 3 trucks, it increases by 50%.
Yeah.
When you go from 3 trucks to 4 trucks, it's a 33% increase. 4 trucks to 5 trucks, 25% increase, right? So the biggest increase you'll ever make in your business is from 1 truck to 2. And go figure, the hardest hurdle is the first one you have to cross.
Yeah, and it's not just that. For many, it's the loss of control and the frustration of that new technician.
Yeah.
I thought I told you to do that. Why didn't you show up on time? Why am I bailing you out of jail again? And these are legitimate things that come up. And that's why often you'll see the self-employed guy go from 1 truck to 2 trucks back to 1 truck, because it's safe, because I'm in control. I know I'll show up. I know it'll get done right. The buck stops here, because until you get to 5, 6, 10 trucks, it's every day is brutal in the beginning when you double. Brutal.
Yeah. Brutal. And I mean, we've been through all that. So I know firsthand that everything you're saying is exactly right. One of the biggest challenges that we see as we have 1 truck companies coming into Tradewinds is a lot of them don't have management experience. And so a lot of what we're doing in Tradewinds is getting these 1 truck companies to start thinking like a manager and start thinking like a leader, right? And the number one thing about, like, especially the type of leadership that we're pushing is servant leadership, right? So when you're a 1 truck company, it's all about me, and my customer. But when you're a leader, it's about your team and your team's customers and your people. And so once you handle that perspective shift from me, I, and control, and you flip that over to relinquishing control and empowering your team to succeed, well, that's when the growth starts happening.
Sure.
And so the more you can empower your team to succeed, the better. And a lot of, like, one of the things that we often say is, like, what does success look like in this role? And so as you're writing a process or a procedure, or you're trying to enable the employee to succeed in that role, like, you have to show them, here's what success looks like. And if you show them what it looks like, they'll replicate it every time. But the business owners that hire a guy and don't give him any boundaries, don't give him any guidance, and they expect him, you just go out there and do good. Well, that good to them looks different than good to you.
Well, the expectations
Yep.
there, it's really not that simple.
Yeah.
Mitch, as always, thank you for joining me today here on the podcast. I'd love to have you back again soon. How's that sound?
Yeah. I'm all game.
All right.
Always.
Thanks.